just before 2008, I mean, Kenny and I were licking our chops because it was a real estate bubble supreme. It was a subprime thing. Everybody was flipping houses and doing all this. And we knew this, in 2008, we knew a crash was coming. And it turned out to be one giant crash. And Kenny would always do this. He says, man, I was going to make a lot of money. What do you see in 23 is this, I suspect this crash is going to be different than 2008. Kenny and I made fortunes because after the subprime market crash again in 2008, the Fed dropped interest rates like this. Our debt went like this. And now in 2023, we're screwed.
Real estate's in a bubble, stock market's in a bubble, bond market's in a bubble. So I just caution you on that because, as some of you heard me before, the best time to buy is after the crash. Everybody was saying get out of debt, live debt-free and all that. And for most people, that's really good advice. If you have no financial education, live debt-free and all this. But the biggest mistake that people make is they call their house an asset. And if you understood a financial statement, which is rich dad, poor dad, assets put money in your pocket, whether you work or not, and liabilities take money from your pocket. So the average person, even if they have a PhD from Harvard, they're buying liabilities they call assets. So it's because Wall Street and the Federal Reserve Bank and all those guys are telling you what to do. So this is going to be the biggest bubble in world history that's going to bust. I think America's going into the next depression. We're going into a depression, possibly a depression. And so when our buddy Joe Biden took off the Keystone XL pipeline, inflation went through the roof. That wipes out the poor because they can't afford to eat. Because oil, I'm an oil guy. I went to school to work for Standard Oil. When the price of oil goes up, fertilizer goes up. Fertilizer goes up, food goes up. And it's really interesting because being an entrepreneur, one of the first things my rich dad taught me is if you're going to be an entrepreneur, the purpose of a business is to buy real estate. And the average person has never heard that. And I use debt and I pay no taxes. So you better learn about taxes because they'll never teach you that at school.
Do you concur or not concur that this crash is going to be different than 2008 for real estate specifically?
Everybody just got through this 10-year run and they believe next year is going to be better. So just like in 08 when you were talking about earlier, so that's the same. People, when guys like you and I come out and say, this is going to be a rough patch, could be even worse. Everybody's saying that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. So it's kind of the same. That's the same. But I agree with you. There's a lot of things that are very different this time around. And, people are in a lot worse situation, I believe. There's over 300,000 people already underwater on their mortgages that bought in 2022 already.
So often I meet people come up to me and they say, hey, I'm jumping into real estate. And I think that's one of the most stupid things you can do.
A lot of people want to, but I think they feel like it's super easy and they can get rich quick. So that's usually the reason they say it. But if it's not always, but sometimes it's a long-term strategy. And then if they say that, then I love it because then that's really what it is. It's a long-term strategy of cash flow. It takes a lot of effort to manage anything. So a 40-unit building is hard, so is a 200-unit building, but really they're not that much different. The basics are pretty much the same. And so a 40-unit building is not very profitable, or even, a 10-unit or 12-unit or 8-unit is not very profitable for any property manager, really. So that's why I had already, been in the business long enough to know that 150 to 200 units is really required for us in order to even make a profit in the management side.
So that's one of the biggest lessons that if you could listen to what the fundamentals are, is start small. And as Kenny knows, Kim is a far better real estate investor than me because she has the management experience. And management of property is the management of people.
The truth is, if you have a manager managing a 10-unit building, you also have a manager managing a 200-unit building. So the difference between a manager that's going to accept a 10-unit building and a 200-unit building is experience and wisdom, and somebody that really understands the business. And so when you start buying bigger properties, what happens is you attract better people and they make more money and you pay them more money.
But a lot of people are lazy.
Because most people believe that they have to have the capital raise, or they need to have, come from a rich family. And those are literally excuses. The biggest issue that we all have right now, and most of the people that we associate with, are deals.
And so that's what gets most new real estate investors in trouble, is they don't know how to manage the property. And there's a lot of legal stuff to it.
Well, yeah. So here's what I see. One of the biggest mistakes is people look at it like a stock or a stock market, or just, they invest their money and then they walk away. Like all of a sudden, magically, these great tenants are going to show up and you're going to be, getting 3 bids for the landscaping and the painting and the cleaning and all the things and the utilities and looking at all the bills and all that stuff. They just think that just happens.
The ABCs of real estate and property management, which is the key to real estate. You can't manage property, get out. And number 3 is the advanced guide to the finance of real estate. And what Kenny has always said, the key to real estate is jobs. And this time, not only interest rates came down after 2008, interest rates are going up this time in 2023. And we're going to have massive unemployment. You look at Meta or Facebook, one of those, they're laying off thousands and thousands and thousands of workers. So it's not only interest rates going this way, it's unemployment going this way too. And would you agree with that, Kenny? If you don't have jobs, that crushes real estate.
Yeah, I always tell people, real estate exists for people, period. You have to have people for it to work. It doesn't really matter what it is, an office building, retail, shopping center, apartments, houses. If there's no people and they can't afford it, then, real estate's going to suffer. And that's where we're heading next.
So when they dropped interest rates after 2008, people were flush with cash because they could afford to flip and do all those goofy things. Then they could afford to go shopping. One of my favorite subjects is shopping centers. I think they're going to be turned into apartment houses eventually, because if he keeps crushing